broken record, as some people say, and I've said this to many of you. Do you realize how blessed we are? We are a small community. We have 3 young men discerning and a candidate. Would you two kindly join me up here? The other 2 were supposed to be here this evening. We have 3 young men and a candidate who God has called from this little community of believers. I've heard the other night we may have another discerner. We have one in the seminary. And who are we? We're just this little humble group of faithful. And what a blessing for all of us. And yes, these are our family. Father, I think that was said rightly. These are our family. These boys are part of us. And that's why, and young men. I always say boys because I could be like my sons. I treat them like my sons. These young men, they're part of us and they're part of our family. And so I told Monsignor I feel very responsible that we will try to do everything we can to support you. Because you're our family. And next month we turn him over to the Institute. You're ours first, but we will turn you over to the Institute and Our Lady. And you will go to her, but you're still a little bit a part of us, always.
Well, that's great to know. Thank you.
And you too, but would you like to just say a few words?
Sure. I guess I should probably formally introduce myself since I don't think I've met most of you, but my name is Lancelot Leong. I'm 24, and as Diana said, I'm now a candidate for the Institute. When I talked to family and friends about my vocation, it came it was a bit of a surprise for everybody because I come from a mostly non-practicing family, and even at this time last year I wasn't even a practicing Catholic. But I came and answered God's call. I guess when I started talking to family and friends about it, I didn't even know where to begin, so I just opened myself up to questions, and since I always appreciate candor, I gladly answered them. And the first question that everyone seemed to ask was, why priesthood? Why, in this day and age, why would a young man choose to pursue this path in his life? And I guess I did some thinking, and I know that today's culture values novelty quite a bit, values individuality, and there's this perception that we Catholics don't think for ourselves, which couldn't be the farther from the truth. But in essence, there's nothing wrong with creativity itself. I think you just need to take one look at the wonderful vestments we have on Sunday Mass or even for daily Masses to know that creativity in itself is a very good thing. But not when it comes to truth. Truth is something that doesn't change over time. Our understanding of it, of the revealed truth, improves over time. But what was held sacred for past generations also remains sacred for us. And even some leaders of our church today don't realize this fact. We know that the church today is in crisis, but it's not something new. I studied history in college, and so I've always had a tendency to look back in the past to know that the church has always, throughout the ages, had moments of crisis. All the church fathers, all they did was fight heresy after heresy. And even the Council of Trent would not have come about if the church were not in great crisis. But we're very lucky, and to be living in this time where we can draw upon 2 millennia of wonderful traditions and devotions inspired by God himself. I always think, what if St. Paul had a rosary? Maybe he wouldn't have been shipwrecked so many times if the star of the sea had been guiding him. Or St. Athanasius, another wonderful doctor of the church, who suffered so much in his life defending the divinity of our Lord Jesus Christ. What if there were Eucharistic adoration back then? Things might have been a little bit easier for him. And so we live in a pretty good time, even though our church may be in crisis. We're very spoiled rotten at St. Margaret Mary's. We have a dedicated staff of volunteers working so tirelessly to build a community, but most of all to glorify God. And also, we're led by a great priest who is a wonderful dreamer, who dreams big. He just thinks so far beyond most of our imaginations to renew the Catholic heritage of our state here in California. I think every age, God calls young men to the vocation of priesthood for different reasons, but ultimately, for me, I think that the truth requires defenders, and I hope that I can serve that calling well. There were two other questions that I usually get asked too. One, how do I feel that I have a vocation to priesthood? I think it was the day I realized that most people don't listen to what I say. But I say this in a bit tongue-in-cheek, but I always think if you read any of Shakespeare's plays, there's always this character who is a bit of a fool, some kind of vagrant or someone who most of the main characters don't take seriously. But he's always, at the end, correct. He's always preaching some sort of wisdom that the main characters may or not may accept. But I think that the role of a priest in society is a bit like that, to just preach the gospel, even if many don't listen to him, even if they don't show up to Mass or receive the sacraments. But in the end, if we want to live our lives as a comedy rather than a tragedy, it's best to heed the words of the Shakespearean fool. And I guess the third question that I usually get asked is whether my family is supportive of my vocation. They were initially very hesitant. I'm come from a Chinese family, and there's two very human fears that the Chinese culture is very, very fearful of. And first of all, is a very human fear of death. But the second one is that a man lives his life without having kids of his own. And I don't think any sane man would deny that he would love to have a wife and kids of his own someday. But as Catholics, we know that love is a sacrifice. And if God fully abides in him, if love itself fully abides in him, then every sort of human sacrifice, every sorrow, every human suffering imaginable becomes bearable and worthy of living out. So I want to thank you. I've talked far too much. I want to thank you, the Seminary Society, and everybody here for all your prayers and support. That's something that is a bit of I guess the money issue is always a bit of an issue for many candidates, because it's something that nobody likes to talk about, but it's a necessity in life. But knowing that I have your prayers and your support is very comforting. Even though being a candidate doesn't guarantee anything, it doesn't. But I hope that I can live up to the higher calling and be able to live out this lifelong commitment in daily life. So thank you all.
A sign for the discerning of his vocation to a very nice place, Wasau, Wisconsin. So if you have a Russian hat or an extra sweater or snowshoes, maybe it will need them.
And keep tuned, because we will have a nice send-off, a little something on a Sunday before he leaves, and we'll let everybody know, and we'll have a little goodbye celebration for him before he leaves.